morning, everybody. Today we have a grammar lesson, Unit 5. Our lesson is about adverbial clauses. What it means adverbial clauses? باز واتاینا بچکی جوار بترجی کردی جوار بيجم يعني بوقت بقري دائية شو كنا سين شخوا after before when شو تواجدي خويا كان after شيء يعني بعده بشتي و before يعني بري دمك يعني بري وقتكي when وقتك أو شيء يعني دفي وقت يدو ولو ببو أبدبيجن شنو أنا عبارات ظرف زمن أفانا وقت ما قلت حرسي يجيب وقت بقري داينا أب حرسي تش كان استخدامك أم كان استخدامك أنت تش أزمينيتي تش شكليتين أنا إيرو الجش خياني به we have after or before or when حرسي يجي شنو ما قلت time clauses دبيجي used to show when something happens in the past or present or in the future. ناخو تسي وقتات جيتي كاراني ممكن زمن future جيده به ممكن زمن present جيبه ممكن زمن past جيده به از هر سيا جوار بدم خويا كرن دكيجا زمني ده به وترتيبا جمله وشلو وتش زمني ده به so الفيدا زي تشتكي دي جوار بيشم مثلا الفيدا after هي here we have example we will discuss the plans after he gives the presentation. Right? So here we have two clauses. We have two clauses. دو جملة جمعهن. شو دو جملة بهدوك تجريدان. وقت يجا أفكار ببو مثلاً ويتش كده ببه. يعني جي أف ببه بشتيه كده ببه. ولا تيجوتن. ليه؟ حريك زمانك أفيك. تش كده هي. أف أمجرد بيجن بشتي after تي أمجرد بيجن شة؟ أمجرد بيجن time clause. وآدن أمجرد بيجن main clause. Lever main clause بيشي هاتيه. Here we have at first a main clause and then we have a time clause. But it may be we have a time clause at the beginning of the sentence. يعني بلكي time clause دسبكا هفوكا ما جيت به. دعولا جملة جيت به. دي ساتشيت به. ويقولوا ببا. After he gives the presentation, we will discuss the plans. ليه؟ چه هي الفيدا؟ تاني بتشكك تغييرك بتشوفك شيء به. We have a little change, which is we have to use comma after the time clause. يعني چه؟ دویگه پشتیک the time clause دانی ده فاصله دینه. پشتی فاصله بدوده تمین clause دینه. افکنگی وقتا گو to time clause دسپیک دینه. ليه؟ time clause داوی ده به يعني الفيدا we have after in the middle of two sentences. So here we don't have to put or use a comma. يعني أمنا مجبورا أم كما دين الفيدا وقتا قد نفيدا به. أم دس بيكن أنا أم حردو جملة بنارن كيجا دس بيكي تشيد به. يعني جي كاتشو أتيد ده. After in the future we will discuss the plans after he gives the presentation. So as I told you, here we have two clauses. The first one is main clause. As a short سربني لسينمجي main clause. Main clause. I have to use another pen. Main clause. Then we have a time clause. Here, after he gives the presentation, أبايا ما قلت شيء يجي F time clause. كم بهدور اللي بنارن قالوا كي جان دسبيك تشويه. شخواتها ويناتشي دبيجي سوف نناقش الخطط بعد أن يعطينا العرض. حطاقوا أو عرض بدما أم يشلوبكن أم خططا بناقشين. ما ناخو كي جان دسبيك تشيد. At first, he will give us the presentation. After he gives us the presentation, we will discuss the plans. We will discuss the plans. So we have time clause. It happens at first. Then we have the main clause, which happens when this happens. So we have main clause in future tense and the time clause in the simple present tense. ما ناخو time clause which زمني دبه وقتا after am future استخدام بكن time clause دائما كذا زمني simple present ده. ليه main clause دبه مستقبل. Then we have at the present. How can we use after in the present? In the present we have Alison checks her mail after she gets home. بيجي إلسون الإيميل خانري بشتي جوجيها ماله. So which action happens first? Here we have the time clause. Time clause happens at first. She gets home at first. Then she check her mail. Time clause. Here we have time clause happens at first. Then we have main clause which happen after the main clause. ناخو كيجا بيشي تشدبه ديسا time clause بيشي تشدبه main clause بدوه تشدبه بيشتي جو بيجي مالي إيميل أخوات كليد نرى لفيدا جملة أجوج after a time clause دوجد كيجا زماني ده بديسا simple present ليه main clause ديسا simple present الفيدا نا future من أبري ونا وقتا future ده main clause ليه present دكذا present ده main clause شيء ده present أو time clause شيء ده present يعني هردو جملة جي دكذا simple present ده simple present استخدام ده ليه تشبونا فعل تشبونا حدث يكبري يكيه وقت مجوره as I told you time clause happened at first then we have main clause the action in the main clause after the time clause happens after the time clause. We have in the past. So we have past. I'm chawa after وقتا قد past ده أنت ماضي استخدام كنشلوين. كم جملة بخوينا وأسجور واتاوينا بيجم ويخوياني ببه كي جابري كي جاني تشدبه ودفيجو time clause كي جان زماني دبه و main clause كي جان زماني دبه. So let me first read the example. Mary purchased a new car. purchase الفيدا يعني هاتي كرينا تشتكي اشترت يعني مكارم بيجن اشترت سيارة جديدة after she أمكارم بيجن had researched وأمكارم بيجن researched تنجي all her options ونا سيارة كنهكري بيشتي جو لحمو خيارات خناري وقت بيجي تشل بيشاوي يعني الظرف خوقش ديت بظرف تشوتشي چه خيارات البيشيا وينا هنا سيارة كري قالوا وينا بيشي سيارة كري يا بيشي الظرف خو ناري دور سيارة كري نا بيشي أو الشناري الظرف خو ناري بيش ظرف وينا الخيارات خو قش ناري بدود سيارة كري. So again we have time clause which is happen first then we have the main clause which happens after the time clause. as جارك دوباركم Mary purchased a new car. اشترت سيارة جديدة بعد أن بحثت كل خياراتها. أنا لذا ماري ما قوميدين أمي بيجن أفايا شيء أفايا من clause. So here we have main clause, and then we have time clause. Time clause. Main clause and time clause. Which action happens? The first, we have the time clause which happens at first. Then we have the action in the main clause which is purchased a new car. This is all about after. So again, I'll repeat after as soon as briefly as I can. After, we can use after in the future tense, in the present, and in the past. After, when we use it in the future, the main clause should be in the future. And the time clause should be in the present simple. The action in the time clause first happen, and then we have the action in the main clause. We have after now in the present. when we have or when we use after in the present, we have main clause in the simple present tense, and we have the time clause again in the simple present tense. Which action happens first? We have the time clause. The action in the time clause happens at first. Then we have the action in the main clause, which happens after it. After, in the past, the main clause should be in the past tense, and the time clause is, again, you can use even simple past or past perfect. Both of them are possible. So, in the past, we have the main clause in the past, simple past, and the time clause even in a simple past or in a past perfect. Which happens at the first? Mary purchased a new car after she researched all her options. We told you, as I told you, the time clause, which happens at first. Then we have the action in the main clause. This is all about after. Now, let me move to the second adverbial clause of time, which is before. Before. Now, we use before again in three tenses: future and the present and the past. Before. We use before in the future. How can we use before in the future? Let us see our example. The first one, when we use before in the future. Jeanne will speak with Jack before she makes a decision. Now, which is the main verb? Here we have the main verb or the main clause. Main clause. And before she makes a decision, this is the time clause. Time clause. Now, so which one happens at first? Jeanne will speak with Jack before she makes a decision. بيجي جيان وبجاكرة بطيفة بيشتغل بري جو قراري بسطينة بري جو قراري بسطينة ناخو كيجا بيشي تشيد بالفيدا الفيدا عكس تشيبونا الفيدا إجا main clause دس بيكي تشيد به. Here we have the action in the main clause which happens at the first. Then we have the action in the time clause. It comes after the action in the main clause. تمام؟ ناخو الفيدا هات عكسي فينا. أبايا دائما time clause بيشي تشيدبو بدودة main clause تشيدبو. للفيدا أنا وقتا the future tense دبه دائما time clause main clause بري time clause تشيدبه. So let us see the tenses. Tense شلوية main clause it would be in the future tense, future simple future tense will speak شخبا will هي وبدود speak فلكي مجردة يعني زمنية ناتشية مستقبلية بسيطة simple future. then وقت عم دبيجن جات جملة time clause چه زمنه دبيجن she makes چه كيجا زمنه which tense is it is simple present. So the time clause should be in the simple present and the main clause it should be in the future simple future. Now let's move to the present. وقت before the present I'm carving. I take a shower before I go to work. وقت بيجم I take a shower before I go to home. بيجم ما دوشك ستاند ودوشك شاكر بريجو أزهر مالي ناخو كيجا بيشي تشيبوي الفيدا بيشي أبا ديسا من close لأف time close ناخو كيجا بيشي تشيبو بيشي مدوش ستاندية إيها وقتاس شو مالي بيجي I take a shower before I go to home. بدوشك ستاند بري أزهر مالي بري أزهر كار work بري أزهر كار. ناخو بري أزهر مكاري خو بري ذكر مكاري خو مدوش تشكرين أولو بيشي أفتشبوي بدود أفتشبوي. So again, the action in the main clause happens in the first, and then we have the action in the time clause, which happens after the action in the main clause. Okay. Now let us see the tenses. The tense of the main clause is simple present. Simple present. And the tense in the time clause, again, it's in the simple present to. Go. I go to work. I go. The verb one. Here we have verb one again, so it means simple present. We have simple, the tense simple present. And again, when we use before in the present, the main clause, it should be in the simple present, and the tense of the time clause, again, it should be in the simple present. Both of them are in the simple present tense, but which happens at the first, as I told you. At first, I take a shower, so the main clause happens first, and then I go to work. That means the action in the time clause happens after it. Now, let's move to the past. Before. How can we use before in the past? In the past, here we have main clause, and here we have time clause. Time clause. Let me read the example. She had already eaten before he arrived for the meeting. She had already eaten before he arrived for the meeting. دبيجي وينا خوار يعني وقت بيجي خوار نه بداوي كر بريجو أو بيجي meeting بريجو بيجي meeting أخوان. فركيشان بيشي تشبوي which happened at the first. She had already eaten or he arrived for the meeting. No, she had already eaten. So we have the first, the action in the main clause which happen at the first, and then we have the action in the time clause happens after it. So what about tense? The tense of the two clauses. We have the tense in the main clause had and verb 3. That means it's past perfect tense. And what about the tense in the time clause? When we say he arrived for the meeting, here we have verb 2. That means simple past. Simple past. ناخذ زمن وشلوبه main clause. زمن وينا دائما past perfect استخدام دبه. ليه؟ time clause ماضي بسيط أبجد بيشن simple past استخدام دبه. كي جا بيشي تشدبه أفشي تبه بيشي تشدبه main clause أول شيء تشدبه بدوده time clause تشدبه. So this is about past. This is about past. And the tenses in the past, as I told you, the main clause should be in the past perfect, and the time clause should be in the simple past tense. As I told you, here we have arrived verb 2. This is all about before, and here we have our last adverbial clause of time, which is when. when شي مقو عندما كان من وين بنرم بأو شواب كارتيد حرسي زمن هذا in future and the present and the past. When in the future will go out for lunch when he comes to visit me. Will go out for the lunch when he comes to visit me. Again, we have the first sentence, which is main clause, and we have here time clause. I'll translate it for you. الترجمة جوار بين بس وانا أفهم بك إن بكشة بيشي تشدبه. دبجة سوف نخرج للغداء عندما يأتي لزيارتي. عربي وتشدبه باش ما يدرك مخارنة بخون وقتا جو أو ب زيارة عمك سردان عمك كيجا بيشي تشدبه بيشي أو ب سردان عمك دو دم يدرك مخارنة بخون لذا what about tense so the main clause is in the future simple future and the time clause is in simple present. I will write down here we will go this is simple future tense so our main clause is in the simple future but our time clause in simple present now we will move to the present. How can we use when in the present? Let me first read the example. Susan plays golf when her friend Mary is in town. Here we have two actions again, but which happens at first? Let me at first translate it. Susan بجولف بليزي وقتها جو هبالا ماري لبلديبة. تمام؟ طيب حردو ببرن بدها تشتغل تشكي شنابه. So we have the two action happens together. وقتها تشتغل ويا كده بيرشدبه. Here we have the tense of the main clause at simple present plays. So simple present and we have the time clause again in the simple present. The tense of the two actions are here we have in the simple present the main clause is in the simple present and we have the time clause which is her when her friend Mary is in town again in the simple present and the two action happens together when Susan plays golf when her friend Mary is in the town. Now we move to the past. When? How can we use when in the past? She took the train to Pisa when he came to visit her in Italy. Here we have Pisa, دبرك جيكا. دبيجة she took the train. دبيجة أو الترين سوار دبي ودرب بيسا وقتا جو أو تي زيارة وينا لإيطاليا. حر أو تي زيارة وين إيطاليا أو جي ترين دقرة ودرب بيسا. يعني وقت بيجي درب بيشيا وينا. كي جام بيشي تشد بالفيدا. Here we have the time clause happens at first. Then we have the action in the main clause which happens after it. Tenses. What about tenses of the two clauses? Here we have the main clause and time clause. We have the main clause in the simple past and the time clause again in the simple past. So both of the clauses are in the simple past tenses. But time clause happens at first, then we have the action in the main clause happens after it. So this is all about the time clauses, adverbial clauses of time after, before, when. بوك معلومات داوي أسجور بيجي بتشيه دبيجي after و before when حرسيجي جتكن introduce a full clause and require subject and the verb. دائما subject جي بيرتي ودائما verb جي بيرتي يعني جملة كامل بيرتي جتكن جملة ساغج مرد عرفينا بشكل أما داويكر. Now we finished. Then we have exercises at the page 72. I will do the exercises in the 72. The first one. She takes the subway when she go into town every week. So here we have two clauses. The main clause and the time clause. And we have the time, the clause, adverbial clause of time, when. The action in the main clause, it should be in the simple present. When. it would be takes. And then when we have time clause now. Again, it should be in the present, goes. Simple. Number 2. Now, you have to try to answer your exercises before me. Try to answer the exercises before me. Number 2. I prepared dinner for my friend yesterday evening. We have 2 verbs. The first one, prepare, and the second one is arrive. I prepared dinner before my friend arrived yesterday evening. We have the main clause in the past perfect. It should be past perfect. Had prepared. Had prepared. And the time clause, it should be in the simple past. Arrived. Number 3. We go out for drinks after we get to the hotel next Tuesday. So here we have the time expression after. The main clause, it should be in the simple future. Will, the verb go, and then we have the time clause. Time clause, it should be in simple present. Get. Number 4. Before I answer his question, he tell me his secret. Now, here we have the time clause at the first of the sentences. And again, don't forget, we put a comma. After it, then we have a main clause. So the time clause, it should be in the simple past. I answered. And the main clause, it should be past perfect. Had told. Had told. Number 5. Baran usually use a bilingual dictionary when he read a book in German. So here we have when. The main clause should be in the simple present, and the time clause, again, it should be in the simple present. So Baran usually use, it should be uses. And then we have the time clause, it should be again in the simple present. The verb is read, it should be reads. Why reads? Because we have the subject he. Number 6. When he arrive next week, he play a round of golf. Here we have again when. We have time expression or time clause at the first of the sentences. The time clause, it should be in simple present. So arrive, it should be arrives. And the main clause, it should be in the future, simple future. Will. And we have the verb play. Play stay as play. There is no change. Now we have the last one, number 7. She ordered a hamburger when she go to a restaurant with me last week. We have when, and the main clause and the time clause, both of them, it should be in the simple past. Order, it become ordered. And the time clause, it should be again in the simple past. Go, become went. Go, become went. Step 2. Yes, we finished exercises. Thank you for listening. أذهبي وجي فيدك برتبه. قالك سباس شبو بهدر كرناوة. باي باي.